Hello and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into a fascinating and, honestly, kind of scary concept, the art of making your opponent defeat themselves.
So let's just start with a puzzle. What's the best way to win a fight without ever throwing a punch? I mean, how could you possibly get your adversary to willingly, on their own, do exactly what you want them to do?
Well, the answer isn't about having more tanks or bigger weapons. It's all about influence. It's about getting so deep inside your opponent's head that they actually choose the path that leads to their own downfall, all while thinking it was their own brilliant idea.
Now, this powerful strategy, it actually has a name, and it gives us a really important framework for understanding so much of the modern information warfare that's shaping our world right now.
Okay, let's get into a more formal definition from military analyst Timothy Thomas. Now, the key words to focus on here are incline and voluntarily. The whole point isn't to twist someone's arm, nope. It's about setting the stage so perfectly that they choose to do exactly what you wanted them to do from the very beginning.
So how does this work in the real world? It's funny, a classic folktale actually nails it perfectly. You remember the story of Brer Rabbit, right? He's caught by the fox and he's begging, "Please, whatever you do, just don't throw me in that briar patch." But of course, the briar patch is exactly where he wants to go. It's his home. By making it seem like the worst possible outcome, he guides the fox to make the one decision that lets him escape. That right there is the essence of reflexive control.
Okay, so you might be thinking, isn't this just what we call perception management? Well, not exactly. As you can see here, managing perception is more about shaping the overall information environment. Making your army look bigger or your economy look stronger. Reflexive control is way more ambitious. It's about literally hijacking the enemy's thought process to lead them down one very specific path that you laid out for them.
So to actually pull this off, you have to know exactly how your opponent thinks. The whole strategy is built on exploiting their cognitive processes, the way their brain works. So the theory goes that every single person, every organization, sees the world through what's called a filter. Think of it like their mental operating system. It's made up of everything that shapes how they see things, their ideology, their culture, their past experiences, their biases, and that filter, that's the target. It's the lens they use to process every piece of information they get. And here's the playbook for manipulating that filter. It's a three-step process. First, you analyze it. You study it to find the cracks, the blind spots, the biases. Second, you feed it information. It could be true, false, or just partially true. That's specially designed to exploit those weaknesses. And finally, the goal is for your opponent to come to the exact conclusion you wanted them to, all while believing it was their idea all along.
So where did this whole idea come from? Well, this concept has a really long and storied history, especially within Soviet and now Russian strategic thinking. This is not a new fad. It's an idea that's been refined for decades. This timeline shows you just how it evolved. It actually started back in the 1960s as a pretty academic theory from a mathematician named Vladimir Lefebvre. From there, it was quietly brought into Soviet military strategy. It was refined again in the 90s, and today it's considered a key part of Russia's modern hybrid warfare approach.
Now, the concept has deep roots in a Russian military tradition you might have heard of called maskirovka, which basically means military deception on a grand scale. But here's the difference. Maskirovka might be about using inflatable tanks to trick a satellite. Reflexive control, on the other hand, is about manipulating the mind of the general who's looking at that satellite photo. It's a much deeper game.
And this is where the concept gets really relevant for all of us. Its applications today go way beyond the battlefield. They go deep into politics, into society, and even into economics.
A Soviet colonel named Kolmov actually laid out several of these methods. You can see 6 of them here, things like deception or pacification. But let's just focus on a few we see all the time now. First, there's overload, just bombarding an opponent with so much conflicting information that they just freeze up. Sound familiar? Think about doom scrolling until you feel totally paralyzed. Then there's division, which is all about driving a wedge between allies. And finally, pressure, which aims to make a government look bad from the inside, turning its own people against it.
And listen, these are not just theories on a page. We've seen them in action. During the Cold War, the Soviets would parade fake missiles, just to send Western intelligence on a wild goose chase, wasting time and money. More recently, in 2014, Russia's use of those so-called little green men in Crimea, that created just enough confusion and ambiguity to paralyze the response from both Ukraine and NATO. And today, well, we see disinformation campaigns trying to undermine trust in democratic processes all over the world. So why does all of this matter?
because you cannot defend against a strategy you don't even know exists. Which brings us to the big question, what in the world can be done to counter it?
So how do you fight back? It turns out just simple fact-checking isn't nearly enough. Experts say you need a multi-layered defense. And yes, part of that is technical stuff like cybersecurity. But the real fight is psychological. It means we have to raise public awareness, work with allies to build our own strong, factual narratives, and maybe most important of all, we have to develop our own critical thinking. And here's the key takeaway from that. Be very, very skeptical anytime a decision seems like the only logical choice. It might just be the path someone else wants you to take.
Ultimately, awareness is your first and most powerful defense. Once you can recognize these strategies, you can start to question the information you get and challenge the narratives being pushed on you. And that leaves us with one final and I think crucial question to think about. In this age of constant information, who is shaping your reality?